In the quiet suburbs of Bremen, Germany, a mother's disappearance would leave investigators baffled for decades. No body, no crime scene, no closure, just a family torn apart and a community left wondering what happened on that fateful morning of February 13th, 1991, when 35-year-old Hatice Corbacioglu vanished without a trace. Hey, true crime enthusiasts! Before we dive deeper into this haunting case, take a moment to hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you won't want to miss our weekly deep dives into some of the most perplexing cold cases from around the world. Picture this: a normal Wednesday morning in Bremen. Snow blankets the ground, and the temperature hovers just above freezing. Hatice, a Turkish-born mother of three, leaves her apartment on Gottfried-Minken Street at 7:45 a.m. She's heading to work at the Mercedes-Benz plant, where she's been employed for years. Her youngest child waves goodbye from the window. It would be the last time anyone in her family would see her. The route to work was one Hatice knew by heart, a 15-minute walk she'd made countless times before. But on this particular morning, something went terribly wrong. She never arrived at the factory. Her time card remained untouched. Her workstation sat empty. Hey there. If you're enjoying this mind-bending case, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It really helps support the channel. When Hatice failed to return home that evening, her family immediately knew something was wrong. This wasn't like her at all. A devoted mother of three children aged 16, 14, and 8, Hatice was known for her reliability and dedication to her family. Her disappearance sent immediate shockwaves through Bremen's tight-knit Turkish community. The initial investigation revealed some troubling details. Hatice had been going through a divorce from her husband, Corbacioglu. The proceedings had been contentious, and there were allegations of domestic disputes. However, on the morning of her disappearance, Serif was confirmed to be hundreds of miles away in Turkey. But here's where things get even more interesting. In the weeks leading up to her disappearance, Hatice had confided in friends about feeling watched. She'd mentioned seeing unfamiliar cars parked outside her apartment building. Was this paranoia? Or had someone been stalking her? If you're as invested in this case as I am, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We've got plenty more twists and turns coming up in this story. The police investigation kicked into high gear. They combed through the snowy streets of Bremen, interviewed dozens of witnesses, and traced every possible route between Hatice's apartment and the Mercedes-Benz plant. But despite their efforts, they found nothing. No signs of struggle, no personal belongings, no evidence of foul play. The snow that had blanketed Bremen that morning proved to be both a blessing and a curse for investigators. While it could have preserved evidence, it also meant that any tracks or traces would have been quickly covered or contaminated by the heavy foot traffic in the area. As days turned into weeks and weeks into months, the case grew colder than the February morning when Hatice disappeared. But the questions only multiplied. How could a person simply vanish on a busy street in broad daylight? Was there a connection to her pending divorce? Or was there something else, something darker, that investigators were missing? 35-year-old Hatice Corbacioglu had vanished on her way to work at the Mercedes-Benz plant in Bremen, Germany. Now let's dive into the twisted web of clues, suspects, and dead ends that would come to define one of Bremen's most perplexing cold cases. By February 14th, 1991, the day after Hatice's disappearance, the Bremen Police Department had mobilized their full resources. Detective Klaus Weber, the lead investigator, knew they were fighting against time. The first 48 hours in a missing persons case are crucial, and those precious hours were slipping away like sand through their fingers. The investigation's first breakthrough came from Hatice's neighbors in the apartment complex on Gottfried-Minken Street. Multiple residents reported hearing a muffled argument around 7:30 a.m. on the morning of her disappearance. One witness, Maria Schmidt, described seeing a dark-colored Mercedes sedan parked in an unusual spot near the building's entrance. However, in the pre-dawn February darkness, she couldn't make out the license plate or identify any occupants. If you're finding this investigation as fascinating as I do, take a quick moment to hit that like button. It really helps our channel reach more true crime enthusiasts like yourself. The police's attention naturally turned to Hatice's personal life. Her pending divorce from Corbacioglu had been contentious, with court documents revealing disputes over custody and financial matters. While Serif had an alibi, multiple witnesses confirmed his presence in Turkey. Investigators discovered something intriguing: large withdrawals from his German bank account in the weeks leading up to Hatice's disappearance. Then came a revelation that would throw the investigation in a completely new direction. Hatice's eldest daughter, during a routine interview, mentioned that her mother had been secretly meeting with someone in the weeks before she vanished. She'd overheard phone conversations in Turkish that seemed to make her mother anxious. When pressed for details, the daughter recalled hearing the name Mehmet mentioned several times. This new lead sent investigators scrambling through Bremen's Turkish community, trying to identify this mysterious Mehmet. They eventually found 3 men with that name who had connections to Hatice's social circle. One of them, Mehmet Y, whose full name was withheld by authorities, had worked at the same Mercedes-Benz plant but quit his job just days before Hatice's disappearance. The investigation into Mehmet Y revealed some troubling connections. Bank records showed he'd purchased a one-way ticket to Istanbul on February 15, 1991, 2 days after Hatice vanished. When German authorities attempted to question him through Turkish law enforcement, they discovered he'd provided a false address. His trail went cold in the winding streets of Istanbul. By April 1991, the investigation had expanded beyond Bremen. Police departments in Hamburg, Hanover, and Frankfurt were put on alert. Hatice's photo was circulated throughout Germany and Turkey. Her case was featured on Aktenzeichen XY, Unsolved, Germany's equivalent of Unsolved Mysteries. The broadcast generated over 100 tips, but each one led to another dead end. One of the most promising yet puzzling pieces of evidence came from a taxi driver who came forward after seeing the television broadcast. He claimed to have picked up a woman matching Hatice's description near the Bremen train station around 9:30 a.m. on February 13th. According to his statement, she seemed agitated and asked to be driven to Hamburg. However, when shown a photo lineup, he couldn't make a positive identification. The investigation took another turn when police discovered that someone had accessed Hatice's bank account on February 14th, withdrawing a small amount of money from an ATM in Bremen city center. The security camera footage was grainy and inconclusive, showing only a figure in a dark coat and hat. Was it Hatice? Was she running from something? Or had someone forced her to withdraw the money? Speaking of following leads, if you're following this case as closely as we are, make sure you're subscribed to our channel. We're constantly updating our viewers when new information comes to light in cold cases like this one. By the summer of 1991, investigators had compiled an extensive case file. They'd conducted over 200 interviews, followed up on 157 tips, and gathered more than 1,000 pages of documentation. But they were no closer to answering the fundamental question: what happened to Hatice Corbacioglu? Some of the most intriguing evidence came from Hatice's work locker at the Mercedes-Benz plant. When police finally gained access to it in March 1991, they found a handwritten note tucked inside a novel. Written in Turkish, it translated to, "I know what you did. Others will know too." The handwriting analysis was inconclusive, and the note's meaning remained a mystery. Was it related to her disappearance, or was it something else entirely? The investigation also uncovered that Hatice had visited a lawyer specializing in immigration law 3 times in January 1991. The lawyer, citing client confidentiality, would only confirm that the meetings concerned family matters. This led to speculation that Hatice might have been planning to return to Turkey with her children, possibly without her husband's knowledge. Another significant lead emerged when investigators discovered that Hatice had made several calls to a number in Hamburg in the weeks before her disappearance. The number belonged to a women's shelter, raising questions about whether she feared for her safety. However, the shelter's strict confidentiality policies meant that any information about potential conversations or visits remained sealed. By December 1991, the active investigation was scaled back. The case remained open, but the daily dedication of resources had to be redirected to other pressing cases. Detective Weber, who had spent countless hours on the case, later wrote in his memoir that the Corbacioglu case was one of the most frustrating of his career. Sometimes, he wrote, the truth seems to vanish as completely as the victims themselves. The case was especially challenging because of its international dimensions. The German police had to navigate complex diplomatic channels to pursue leads in Turkey. Cultural differences and language barriers sometimes complicated witness interviews. The Turkish media covered the case extensively, often presenting theories and angles that differed from their German counterparts. The recent developments that have reignited interest in Hatice's disappearance and the current status of this haunting mystery. Could new forensic technologies finally help solve this decades-old case? The answers might surprise you. Before we dive into the lasting impact and recent developments in Hatice Corbacioglu's disappearance, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more in-depth true crime investigations. The years following Hatice's disappearance brought profound changes to both the investigation and her family. By 1995, her 3 children had moved to Turkey to live with relatives, carrying the weight of their mother's unsolved case with them. Her eldest daughter, now an advocate for missing persons families, has never stopped searching for answers. The case took an unexpected turn in 1997 when construction workers renovating an old warehouse in Bremen's industrial district discovered a woman's handbag buried beneath some rubble. The bag contained a Turkish identity card that had expired in 1990, but the name was illegible due to water damage. Despite extensive forensic analysis, investigators couldn't definitively link the bag to Hatice's case, though its location was just half a kilometer from her intended route to work. The impact on Bremen's Turkish community was profound and long-lasting. The case exposed the challenges faced by immigrant families dealing with the German legal system and highlighted the complexities of cross-cultural police investigations. In response, the Bremen Police Department established a special unit in 1998 specifically trained to handle cases involving the city's immigrant communities. In 2001, a decade after Hatice's disappearance, the case received renewed attention when a true crime television show in Turkey featured her story. The broadcast led to an interesting development. 3 viewers independently reported seeing someone matching Hatice's description working in a cafe in Izmir. German investigators working with their Turkish counterparts tracked down the woman in question, but DNA testing confirmed it wasn't Hatice. If you're finding these international connections fascinating, give this video a thumbs up. It helps us bring more global true crime cases to light. The investigation took another significant turn in 2003 when advances in DNA technology allowed investigators to re-examine evidence from the case. They focused on a single dark hair found in the back seat of a taxi, the same taxi whose driver had reported picking up a woman matching Hatice's description. While the hair shared some genetic markers with Hatice's children, the results were ultimately inconclusive due to the sample's degradation. The year 2006 brought a startling revelation. An anonymous letter arrived at the Bremen Police Department, written in Turkish and postmarked from Istanbul. The writer claimed to have information about Hatice's disappearance, but would only share it in person. Despite months of negotiation through intermediaries, the mysterious informant never came forward. Some investigators believed it was a cruel hoax, while others saw it as a missed opportunity to crack the case. The disappearance of Hatice Corbacioglu also led to significant changes in how missing persons cases are handled in Germany. In 2008, the Bremen Police Department implemented new protocols for cases involving immigrant victims, ensuring that cultural liaisons are involved from the earliest stages of investigations. These changes, known informally as the Corbacioglu protocols, have since been adopted by other German police departments. In 2011, 20 years after Hatice vanished, her case was featured in a comprehensive review of cold cases by a team of forensic students at the University of Bremen. Their analysis uncovered something investigators had missed: a pattern of similar disappearances across Western Europe in the early 1990s. While none of these cases were definitively linked to Hatice's, the study highlighted the need for better international cooperation in missing persons investigations. The case took another turn in 2015 when Serif Corbacioglu, Hatice's ex-husband, died in Turkey. On his deathbed, he reportedly told family members that he had secrets about Hatice's disappearance, but he passed away before making any specific revelations. German investigators attempted to interview the family members who heard these statements, but diplomatic complications and jurisdictional issues prevented any formal follow-up. Modern technology has opened new avenues of investigation. In 2018, investigators used advanced ground penetrating radar to examine several sites in Bremen where witnesses had reported suspicious activity around the time of Hatice's disappearance. While these searches didn't locate Hatice's remains, they did lead to the discovery of evidence related to other unsolved crimes, demonstrating the value of revisiting cold cases with new tools. The mystery deepened further in 2020 when a retired Bremen police officer came forward with new information. He revealed that in 1991, the department had received an anonymous tip about a woman fitting Hatice's description being forced into a car near the Dutch border. At the time, the tip was dismissed due to the distance involved, but recent analysis of traffic patterns and timing suggests it could have been credible. In 2022, Hatice's youngest child, now an adult with children of her own, launched a social media campaign to raise awareness about her mother's case. The campaign, #JusticeForHatice, gained significant traction in both Germany and Turkey, leading to several new tips. While none have yet led to a breakthrough, the campaign has helped keep the case in the public eye and demonstrated the power of social media in cold case investigations. The most recent development came in early 2023, when advances in genetic genealogy prompted investigators to re-examine DNA evidence from the case. While traditional DNA analysis had proven inconclusive, new techniques might be able to extract more information from the preserved samples. The results of these new tests are still pending, offering a glimmer of hope for Hatice's family. Today, 33 years after Hatice Corbacioglu walked out of her apartment for the last time, her case remains one of Germany's most perplexing, unsolved mysteries. Her disappearance has left an indelible mark on Bremen's history and changed how missing persons cases are investigated across Germany. While many of the original investigators have retired or passed away, a new generation of detectives continues to review the case files, hoping that advancing technology or a long-held secret finally coming to light might provide the breakthrough they need. If this case has touched you as deeply as it has touched us, please consider subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us continue to shine a light on cases like Hatice's, ensuring that these stories and the vital questions they raise are never forgotten. For Hatice's children, now adults with families of their own, the questions remain. What happened to their mother on that cold February morning? Will they ever know the truth? And perhaps most importantly, will they ever find the closure they've sought for so long? The case of Hatice Corbacioglu reminds us that behind every unsolved mystery is a family waiting for answers, a community forever changed, and a truth that refuses to stay buried. While the case remains officially open, its impact extends far beyond the confines of a police file, touching on issues of immigration, justice, family, and the enduring human need for answers to the questions that haunt us. As we conclude this investigation, remember that someone somewhere knows what happened to Hatice Corbacioglu. Perhaps they're watching this video right now. Until they come forward, her case remains one of the most compelling mysteries in German criminal history, a reminder that sometimes the most profound questions are those that remain unanswered. This has been the story of Hatice Corbacioglu. Until next time, stay curious, stay vigilant, and remember, no mystery remains unsolved forever.